Welcome to Hook by Katie. Today we are making this awesome dragon eye pillow. We're going to be working on it together, step by step, stitch by stitch. A supply list can be found in the description below. This pattern is not designed for beginners or people who are just now picking up a crochet hook. However, I do my best to make every technique you will learn easy to understand. I also recommend having a text version of the pattern to follow along with. There are links in the description to the free text-only version that you can read online on my blog, or to the Premium Pattern 2.0, which is a printable PDF with color photos and checkboxes so you can track your progress. So let's get started and make our dragon eye pillow. Alright, getting started on our dragon pillow form. We are going to chain 66, and I've already gone ahead and done that. I know that I chain a little bit tight, so I did this with one size up. So I actually did this with my eye hook so that I knew this would be nice and flexible when I went back and did all my stitches with my H hook. So for the pillow form, you're going to be working with your H hook, and we're going to be working on what's called a Suzette stitch, and I'll show you how to get that started. And then I will show you how to come back the other way with it so you can see what it looks like from both sides. And then I will turn you loose making your pillow forms, because nobody wants to watch me do 60 rows of Suzette stitch. So to start out, you're going to work an SC and a DC into that second chain from the hook. So they're both going into that same chain, like that. All right, then you're going to skip a chain and work an SC and a DC into that same, or into the next chain. Okay, so you have a little cluster of an SC-DC, a space skipped chain right here, and a new SC-DC. So we're going to skip a chain and SC-DC into the next chain. Right, and we're going to repeat that all the way across. Skipping a chain, and doing an SC, DC. When you get to the end of the chain, you're going to have 2 chains left. You're going to have just done an SC, DC, and the very last chain of your first row is actually just going to be an SC. So you're going to do your skip a chain just like you did before, but instead of doing an SC-DC in the last chain, you're going to just do an SC. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, however you like to do it. But then what we're going to do is work our SC-DC again into the top of the SC that we just made. So the very first stitch after our chain 1. So we're going to work our SC and the DC in the same stitch. Skip 1, so you're going to skip what is the DC of the previous SC-DC, and work SC-DC in the next stitch. And you're just going to repeat that over and over again, all the way up to 60 rows. And then bind yourself off and you'll have a nice big pillow form for us to attach our eyeball to after the fact. So go ahead and make 2 of these. Make 2 Suzette stitch pillow forms, or pillow flats, or whatever you want to call them. The front and back of your pillow. Let's just go with that. And the front and back of your pillow will be all done and ready and set aside waiting for your eyeball. So let's get going on that, shall we? Alrighty, the eyeball of our dragon eye pillow starts with a burnt orange, and you will be changing over to a G hook instead of your H hook you made your pillow front and back with. So the G hook is going to be what you use for all of the eye pieces and horns and, you know, bits that go into the eye. So to start out, you're going to get out your burnt orange or whatever center color you choose. I've seen some pretty amazing color options for dragon eyes. You should go over to the gallery on hookbykatie.com and check out all the different color combinations that people are using. It looks really, really cool. But for this one, we're going to do the traditional as written colors. So starting with our burnt orange, we're going to chain 2, And round 1 is to 6 SC into the second chain from the hook. If you're more comfortable using a magic circle here, go for it. I like the chain 2 method. It just seems a little more reliable for me and a little bit more foolproof for people who haven't quite mastered the magic circle. I don't want people to feel like they absolutely have to use that every time. So chain 2 works just fine. So 6 SC into the second chain from the hook. All right, then we're going to increase in each stitch around. So there's an increase. Increase. That's 3, 4, 5, and 6 increases. So now we've got 12 stitches around. Round 3 is going to be SC and then increase. We're going to repeat that 6 times. So we're going to SC and then increase in the next stitch. SC, increase, SC, increase, SC, increase, SC, increase, and once more, SC, and increase. Alright, see, we're getting a little bigger. Round 4 is 2 SC increase 6 times, and you'll have started to see a bit of a pattern here. SC, SC, increase. All right. Round 5 is 3 SC increase. 6 times all the way around. 2, 3, increase. One more. SC, 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 increase. All right. So round 6 is 4 SC increase 6 times. That will get us up to 30 stitches. So 4 SC, 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase. 2, 3, 4, and an increase. All right, so you'll start to see that your eyeball is gaining a little bit of concavity to it. It's getting a little bit of a bend in it. And that's okay, because what we're going to do when we put it on the pillow is kind of let it bulge up, just like this, against the pillow, so it looks like an eye. I mean, you know, eyes don't lay flat against your skull. That'd be weird. So, keep going. Round 7 is 5 SC increase 6 times, and that will get us to our 42 stitches. Two, 3, 4, 5, and an increase. Now, it is time to change colors. We're going to change colors to our like bright, I think this one's called Varsity Gold, or just, it's like a bright yellow. See, real pretty. In order to change this color nicely, we need to use the last stitch a little differently. So I'm going to pull out that last stitch of the increase, and I'm going to start it and leave it right at this step. So here's where I would yarn over and keep going. Instead, I'm going to add our new color, which I've put a slip knot in. That's just habit now. Add our new color, and then that's how we're going to do our color change. So we've changed to gold, and we're going to SC spike stitch all the way around. So we're going to SC in the first stitch, and then spike stitch in the second stitch. And if you look at your special stitches, this is a stitch that goes 2 rows down, or 2 rounds down from the one we are working. So here's the one we're working, right? Here's one. If we were to go in this hole, we'd be going down 1 row. We're going down 2 rows, so we're going in this hole. Okay, can you see that? So all we're going to do is make our SC. We're going to go in that hole, pull up a loop, and pull up kind of a nice loose loop so we have something to work with, and then finish the SC. We've made kind of a long, pointy spike SC. That SC is going to kind of wrap over the next stitch, so we have to make sure that we don't accidentally work into the stitch that our spike stitch just went over, because it is technically already worked by working this spike stitch. So SC, and then go down 1, 2, pull that gently up, and spike stitch. Okay, SC, and then 1, 2, and spike stitch. SC, and that last one is a spike stitch. Alright, so there we go. We've done our first round of spike stitches. So round 9 is just a regular round of SCs, but we're going to do those 6 increases again. So it's going to be 6 SC increase. We're going to do it 6 times. So I'll work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and an increase. Alright, still with our gold, round 10 is going to be 7 SC increase 6 times, and I'm guessing you've probably caught on to the pattern at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and an increase. Brings us back to our starting point. Alright, and we're still getting that nice concavity to it, so it's still looking very eyeballish. So round 11 is 8 SC increase 6 times. That will bring us up to 60 stitches around. I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and an increase. Alrighty. So, just like before, it's time to change colors. Get out our cornmeal color. And this is just a lighter yellow to contrast with the darker yellow, just so that it looks like the eyeball kind of progressively goes from light to dark as it's getting bigger. So we're gonna put a little slip knot in our cornmeal color here. And then just like last time, I'm going to pull out the second stitch of that increase so that we can do first part of the stitch in this yellow and finish the stitch in this yellow. Alright, so Round 12 is SC spike stitch again, and this time we're going to do it 30 times in order to go all the way around our 60 stitch round. So it is SC, and then that same 2-stitch spike stitch, or 2 rows down spike stitch. So SC, count 2 down. Whoa, and finish it. SC, spike stitch. All right. And SC, spike stitch is our last stitch in that round. So there we go. There's our color change and our second set of spike stitches. Next we're going to, round 13 is 9 SC increase 6 times. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to increase all the way out to 90 stitches. So we're going to continue this. So we'll end up, you know, rounds 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 are all increase rounds. This one will be 9 increases, or 9 stitches and an increase. Round 14 will be 10 stitches and an increase. Round 15 will be 11 stitches and an increase. Round 16 will be 12 stitches and an increase. Round 17 will be 13 SC and an increase. And then you will be up to 90 stitches. And I'm going to go ahead and do all these increases and meet you back here so we can see if we're in the same place. Alrighty, so we are through round 17 of our eyeball, and we have this here. You can see it is quite concave, quite of a bit of a bowl, and we're going to actually make it a little bit more of a bowl by doing 2 rounds even. So just working 1 SC in each SC. Working 2 rounds even. Rounds 18 and 19 are worked even. So let's go ahead and do those, and then we'll all look at our finished eyeball together. All right, we're back with our finished eyeball. I moved the camera up so that I could get the whole thing in frame real easily, and so you guys could see the concavity really well. But it is nice and concave, nice and rocky, and it's going to make a perfect eyeball. Onward to the next piece. All right, our next step is to make our eye slit, and that is going to be the vertical line. It actually has 2 little barbs kind of on the middle. It's a vertical line with 2 little barbs on it that is going to be placed vertically on our eyeball so that it looks like an eye, of course. So we start with a chain 26. I'm just using black, and I'm still using my G hook. And row 1 is to SC in the second chain from the hook, and SC 24 down. So we'll have 25 stitches total. And this is going to act as the foundation row for our long, skinny oval that we're making that will be our eye slit. And I like putting these foundation rows inside of ovals. As you may have found out in the ovals video that I did fairly recently. And I just think it makes it look more clean, and it takes the gaps out of the middle where the chain stitches usually are. Very handy. So, we're going to SC all the way down our chain, and we will just have a straight little strip. So when we get to the end of our initial foundation chain here, we're going to turn and not do a turning chain. So we're not going to chain here. That just keeps this end from being too bulky when we come back around to it. And we're going to increase in the first stitch. I know it's really hard to see because it's black. I apologize. But it needs to be, since that's the color it is in the real pattern. So do an increase in the first stitch, and then 11 SC. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now in this next stitch we're going to do a DC, picot, DC, all in the same stitch. And what that's going to look like is a regular DC here. And then a picot is actually like it's a series of chains, usually 2 or 3, depending on the pattern. Always check your pattern. And your picot is like 2 or 3 chains, and then you slip stitch back into the first one, and it creates kind of a little nub. And we're going to use that nub. We use it in amigurumi a lot to create textures, to add feathers to things. But in this case, it's going to create our little barb that goes on the side of this eye. So for this pattern, it is a chain 3, and then we're going to slip stitch back into the 3rd chain from the hook, or rather the 1st chain of the 3 chains, and then DC back into the same stitch as the other DC. So it'll kind of look like this. And then 11 SC again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And we have 1 stitch left, which we're going to do our increase in. Alright, now we're still on the same round because we're actually going to work around that foundation round. We're going to turn the work over, and now the bottom of the chain is facing up. And if you need more help with this, you can check out my ovals video. That is a good way to understand this a little bit better. But the bottom of the chain is now facing up, and we're going to work into the backs of those chain stitches. So there again, super hard to see when it's black, but we'll do our best. We're going to rotate that work, and then in the back of the chains, we're going to work an increase and 11 SC. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Then we're going to do that DC, picot, DC in the next, I guess it's a chain space. It's the underside of a chain space, so yeah, we'll call it a chain space. Picot and a DC. Right. Then 11 SC in the next 11 chain spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and in that last chain, do an increase. All right. It looks a little bit funny at the moment, but here's our the slit for our eye. It's 11 stitches on either side with an increase and the barb in the middle. You can see like that. Pretty cool, right? All right, and we're going to add in our orange border. This is just going to make this eye slit really pop. I'm going to, just like we did last time, I'm going to take out the last stitch of the increase so that I can start it again. And I know there's other ways to do this. This is just the easiest way to see it. There's a million ways to change colors out there. This is just, you know, the way that I'm choosing this time. So, all right, we're going to change to our orange. And now working into the very first stitch of last round, just like we would in any other round. But I know there's a gap here, so it's a little bit more confusing. But we're going to work right into it. And we're going to increase. And then 13 SC. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Alright, and the next 3 stitches we're going to put into that picot. If you're really lucky, you'll catch the light, see, coming through the hole where the picot is, because remember, this is just a chain 3 slip stitch into the first chain. So there is a hole there, a little bitty one, but a hole just the same, where those chain 2 are. So that's where we're going to put our 3SC. So we're going to 3SC into our picot. So 1, 2, 3, okay, and then 13 SC again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Increase in the next 2 stitches. So we're going to increase here and then increase in the next stitch also. 13 SC, kind of getting the rhythm here. 13 SC back to our picot on the other side. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. The last stitch goes in that DC. Then we're going to 3 SC in this picot. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to 13 SC again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and increase in the last stitch of the round. Then we're going to slip stitch in the next stitch to kind of close everything off. And we have our eye slit. So what it's going to look like is, here's our big eyeball, and we're going to put our eye slit right across it like this. It's got a very Sauron vibe right now, but we'll give it an eyelid and then it'll look better. Okie doke, to make our horns, we're going to keep using that G hook. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make the extra large horn for you. It expands out 2 increases per round out to 20 stitches. And the reason I want to do that is because the small horn is the exact same thing, it just only expands out to 10. The medium horn expands out to 12. The large horn expands out to 16, and the extra large horn expands out to 20. And so if we do an extra large horn, you'll get the feel for all of the smaller horns without having to do them. The only thing that is different from them, other than obviously where they stopped, is every single one has a round worked even at the end, just to make it easier to attach so you didn't have to attach through increases. It makes it easier to see when you get to the attachment part. So I put a round even on the end of each one. But let's go ahead and do our extra large horn, and I will stop and show you what the individual sizes look like as we go. But this gives you a good feel for all the horns and prevents our video from being 3 hours long. So the first step in all the horns is to 6SC into the second chain from the hook, or into your magic circle, however else you want to do that. We're going to pull that tight, and then we're going to work 2SC increase twice. So I'm going to working into that first stitch. I'm going to do 1, 2, and an increase. 1, 2, and an increase. All right. Round 3 is to 3SC and an increase. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and an increase. And then again, 1, 2, 3, and an increase. Right, and that puts us at 10 stitches. So for your small horns, you're going to stop here and just work 1 round even, and your small horns will be done. For a medium horn, you're going to work these same 3 rounds and then do 1 more. So you're going to do a 4SC and an increase. So let's do 2, 3, 4, and an increase. And then again, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and an increase. I highly recommend you use stitch markers when making the horns. Even though they're small and even though there's only 2 increases per round, it's surprising how easy it is to get those 2 increases mixed up and get lost. So consider using stitch markers. So this is the size of your medium horn. We've increased it 2 stitches per round out to 12 stitches a round. So to make your medium horn, you will just go this far and then work at 1 round even. The large horns are 16 stitches around, so we're going to keep increasing at that exact same rate. Round 5 of the large horn will be 5SC and an increase. 2, 3, 4, 5, and an increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an increase. All right. And around 6 of the large horn is 6SC and an increase, so we will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and an increase. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and an increase. This will get you out to 16 stitches, which is where our large horn is. So when you're making a large horn, you will work out to 16 stitches, just like we have been. Do one round even, and you will be done with your large horn. And your extra large horn is going to go out to 20 stitches using the exact same technique. So that means our round 7 of our extra large horn is 7 SC, increase twice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and an increase. And then again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and an increase. And round 8 is 8 SC and an increase twice. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and an increase. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and an increase. Okie doke, and that is the size for your extra large horn. Again, if you're making the extra large, you work one round even at the end. So let's go ahead and work our one round even since we are making the large horn. You're going to be working into that last round, half of it at a time as we do the eyebrow, the upper eyelid. So these kind of go across as an eyebrow question mark. I don't know. Do dragons have eyebrows? But yes, this is a goes across kind of above his lid on the crest of his eye. Let's call it that. And you will be working all of these stitches. So when you bind off, try not to hide your stitches. So you will be working all of these stitches going around. So if you have a fancy bind off that hides this stitch, I would highly recommend not using it here. I just slip stitch into the same stitch as the last one so that I have easy access to the first and the last stitch, and I can see them really easily. And then you can weave this in if it makes it easier for you to see. I will probably weave mine in just so that they are easier to see. The attachments are easier to see on the video. Alrighty, you've got one extra large, one large, 2 medium, and 1 small horn to make. So go make your horns, weave in that end if you want to for ease, and we will get ready to make our eyelids and put our horns on. Alright, getting started with our upper eyelid, we're going to grab that G hook again and chain 58. And I went ahead and chained my 58 so that I didn't have to do it. And then we're going to HDC in the 3rd chain from the hook. So 1, 2, and 3. Yarn over, duh. HDC. Okay. And then HDC 55 more times. So in every remaining chain to the end. Now, your stitch count is going to matter. So don't just mindlessly HDC to the end. Do count your stitches to make sure that you actually have 56 HDCs when you are done with this first row. And then what we're going to do is turn and make 56 HDCs back and make 3 more rounds just like that. So your first, or rows, sorry, your first 5 rows are just standard back and forth HDCs, all right? I'm sure you can handle that. So I'm going to go and work on my HDCs, and you can go work on yours. This is the thickest part of the eyelid. It's going to, you know, fold over itself and create your nice thick edge of the eyelid that's actually going to overlap the eyeball. So go do your 5 rows of HDCs. So we now have 5 rows of HDCs. Here, a nice long strip of them. And what we're going to do now is, at the end of row 5, is turn our work and chain 1. And this is where we're going to fold everything in half. So we're going to fold the work with the back, with the starting chain here to the back. And you're going to stick your hook through the next stitch and then through the base of the chain that you've folded up against it to touch it here. So, and then you're going to do an SC. So you're going to end up working in the backs of all of these chains and simultaneously working in the next stitch. And we're going to fold this in half and use this next row, use row 6 to pinch it together into a nice big wide sort of 2-layered tube. So into the first or the next stitch, and then the next chain and SC. Just like this. And we're going to do this all the way down, all 56 stitches. So we'll have a row of 56 that looks just like this. Okay, so we have our tube. We're actually not going to use it as a tube. It's really just 2 layers. This is the very edge of the eyelid, and I rolled it this way, both so that it's nice and thick and so that it has this nice rolled edge on it that's going to look really, really cool on your eye. So row 7 is going to start with a chain 1. Boop. And then we're going to slip stitch 15. And what this is going to do is we're working on a section of the eyelid that doesn't, we don't want to add any width to it. We want it to still stay narrow. And the reasoning for that will be that it acts kind of as a, I don't know, a decorative part of the eyelid. Kind of goes off to the side in a very cat eye-like vibe. Or let's say a very serpent-like vibe. So we have 9 slip stitches, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Okay, so we have our 15 slip stitches. All right, and then we're going to work 12 SC increase 3 times. And this is going to start giving this just that slight bow to it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and an increase. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and an increase. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and an increase. And we're going to leave the last 2 stitches here unworked. So we leave those guys unworked and turn. And row 8 is going to be a chain 1, and then bobble stitch. Oh no, 3 SC bobble stitch, sorry, 10 times. So we're going to work 1, 2, 3, and a bobble stitch. And a bobble stitch for this pattern has 5 half a DCs in it. So we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into the next stitch right here and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and pull through 2. And we're going to do that 5 times. So we have insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So now we're gathering up loops on our hook, see? Yarn over, spread these out so we can see, and pull through 2 of them. Okay? Yarn over, insert the hook, pull up a loop, spread them out so we can see what we're doing. Yarn over, pull through 2. We got 5 now. We need to have 1 more. Yarn over, insert that hook and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through 2, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through, and there's our bobble stitch. Ta-da! Isn't that cool? It's pretty spiffy, right? All right, so just make sure when you do your next stitch that you are working into the actual next stitch. You're not accidentally skipping one. That's easy to do when you've got all this bulk of the bobble stitch working next to you. So here's our stitch. So let's make sure we get in there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and a bobble stitch. And these bobble stitches, they get more comfortable the more you do. You'll definitely have plenty of them to do in this pattern. So maybe this will get you comfortable with a new stitch. Right, so we have 6 loops on our hook. Yarn over and pull through all 6 to finish up our bobble. And then we're going to 3 SC. Now at this point, it doesn't matter if your bobbles poke this way and stick out the back, or this way and stick out the front. Because what's cool about bobble stitches is you can stick your finger in them and poke them to the direction they need to be based on the pattern, which will be relevant here shortly. But just so you know, if your bobble stitches pop the wrong direction the first time you make them, or any time you make them, it's no big deal. We can kind of maneuver them once we get to a point where it's easier to see which direction they need to be popped. So 3, 4, and 5 times, pull through all 6. Alright, SC3, one last time. 1, 2, 3, and a bobble stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, branches, legs, I don't know, of a bobble stitch. Pull through 6. Alright, and then we're going to do 2 SC on the end here. So 1, 2. And that brings us back to our slip stitched section here. and turn. Alrighty. So round 9 is sorry, bad habit of an amigurumi person. Row 9 is chain 1, 13 SC increase 3 times. So we're basically kind of stacking on those increases from earlier to keep this archiness, is that a word? Archiness? Going. To keep this eyelid looking archy like this. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6. Working into the tops of those bobble stitches. Make sure you don't grab a whole big chunk over the back of the bobble stitch. This might be one of those times where it's easy to pop it forward so that you can see where that stitch is. So that might be a useful thing to do there. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and an increase. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and that last stitch is an increase. Alrighty, making some progress. So we're going to turn again, and row 10 is where we're going to attach our eyeball. So this is where people get confused, because if their bobbles are popped the wrong way, it can get really confusing as to where this eyeball is supposed to go when we say it needs to go on the back side of the work. So let's get our eyeball out and we'll get this all set up. Okay, so here's how this works. We have our eyeball. This is the right side or the front side of our eyeball. And what we want our eyelid to do is lay over the top of it like this, right? At a nice little angle, which the angle won't matter at the moment, but you want it to lay over the top of it. So when we're going to be working these together here very shortly, we want this eyeball on the back side of the work like this, and our eyelid is going to follow it like this. So first we need to get to the point where the eye needs to attach. Alright, and we're going to chain 1 and 15 SC here. So 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Then we need to hold our eyeball behind the work, and we're going to start at the place where we left off on the eyeball. We're going to start with this is round 1 or stitch 1 right here. Okay, so we're going to layer our eyeball with the right side, so the front side facing the back side of our eyeball, and we're going to hold them together and working through the eyelid, the whole stitch of the eyelid, and the whole next stitch of the eyeball, like this. We're going to work 30 SCs, and this is going to attach our eyeball to our eyelid. So insert into the eyelid, then to the next stitch of the eyeball, and SC. Right? Next stitch of the eyelid, next stitch of the eyeball, and SC. So we're going to keep doing that until we get to 30 stitches. So this is 4. Alright, 5, 28, 29, 30, And the last stitch makes 30. Phew! We did it! We attached our eyeball. So you can see why this particular row 10 slips some people up, because if your baubles were facing the other way, it would be really hard to tell that this was the wrong side. This would look like the right side. And then putting it on the back would look really, really confusing. So make sure when you're doing round 10, you are working left to right toward your slip stitch end, and your baubles are facing, or popped to be facing you. Right? That is going to make this attachment make a lot more sense. Alright, so there's that attachment. So you can see we have attached our eyeball, and it's now a part of us. It's going to go with us from now on. So row 11 is going to be 14 SC and increase 3 times. So you guys know how to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and an increase. And row 12 is going to be a 3 SC bobble stitch 9 times. It's another bobble stitch round, yay! Or not yay if you don't like bobble stitches, but we're going to do 3 SC bobble stitch 9 times. And then 10 SC and a decrease on the end over here. So let's get started on that. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, and a bobble stitch. Like I said, by the end of this pattern, you're either going to be really proficient at bobble stitches, or you're going to hate them. And hopefully not hate me in the process. Alright, 1, having some trouble seeing that, sorry. 2, 3, and a bobble stitch. Alright, and you will see that these are not in line with the previous bobble stitches. They are going to be offset. So you're going to have one sort of in between each one. They're supposed to look a little bit sporadic because, you know, it's nature. Nature's not perfect. So, but just so you're not trying to line them up, that is not the goal. So you're fine if they don't line up perfectly. That is what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be kind of offset. Alright, so there's 2, 3, 4, and 5 branches, legs, whatever, on our bobble stitch. And our last bobble stitch makes 9. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of our bobble stitch, whatever you want to call it. And now we do 10 SC here on the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the last stitch here is a decrease. So we're going to do just a standard decrease There is no point in doing invisible decreases here. I mean, I guess you can on this one because this one is actually facing the other way. But because this is a flat piece, they don't have the same effect as on amigurumi, so go ahead and use your regular decrease. Alrighty, turn, and we are on to row 13. We have another set of increases to do, but we're adding some decreases to this end to try to, you know, tweak this edge so it's a little smoother. So we're going to start with a decrease here. Again, just a standard decrease, not an invisible one. And do 12 SC and our first increase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and an increase right there. Then we're going to do 15 SC increase twice, and that will take us to the end of this row. And then we're getting ready to put our horns on. Isn't that exciting? So 15 and an increase twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 13, 14, 15, and an increase. Alright, we have come to row 14, and row 14 is where we're going to attach our horns. So I've laid out the horns in the order we need to use them as we work across, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working through only half of the back of the horn here. So we're going to, working through this last round, we're going to work through one side of it and attach it here. And then when we come back on the other round, we're going to work through the other side of it. And what that's going to do is give us an open part on the back of our piece here that we can stuff if we want to when we put it on the pillow. But it gives it a nice three-dimensional flexibility. It's not going to be, if we were to work through both layers, it'd be nice and like pressed super flat and kind of look like this. But we want it to have nice 3D-ness. So we're going to work through half of it on this round and half on the next round. So here's what we're going to do. Let's get started on round 14. Looks like I chained before I turned, so you're going to chain 1 and turn, and then SC1 to give us a space between the end of the work and the first horn. So pick up your extra large horn. I'm going to turn it over so I can see the first stitch a little easier. Pick up your extra large horn, and you're going to put your hook through the horn first, since it needs to be on this right side of the work in order to accomplish our goal. And you're going to be using the back half of it, these stitches, not these. So we're going to insert through the horn first, and then through the next stitch on the work. Okay, and SC. All right, you can do that 9 more times. There's 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, and so now we've attached our horn halfway, and you can see this is what the undersides look like, and this is what the top looks like. All right, now we do another SC just on the eyelid itself. and then hold the next horn, which is our large horn, into the same place. And we're going to do the same exact thing with it. So we're going to put the hook through the horn first, then through the work. And this one is smaller, so we're going to go 8 SCs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, so we got 2 horns started out on our attachment. We're gonna do 1 SC again on the eyelid only, and then grab our medium horn and we're going to work 6 on it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one, 6. All right, so we have our open sides of here. We're making good progress. So we do the next horn, so we're going to do 1 SC again, and we're going to do the next medium horn, because we have 2 of those, remember? And we're going to do it the same way. Put our hook through the horn first, then through the work, working into the back side, the nearest side of the horn there. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, and after our medium horns are done, we're going to SC once again and do our little bitty horn, which is 5 SCs. So we're going to 1 SC on the eyelid only, and then we get out our little bitty horn, and we're going to add him to the party. So attach him the exact same way. So as they get smaller, it does get a little bit harder to see your next stitch. So feel free to kind of pull it away once in a while and look at it and make sure you're on the right track. The pattern will tell you if you missed a stitch, because you will not get to the end of the row. Your count won't add up. All right, and then we're going to do 7 SCs. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that last stitch is a decrease. Ta-da! We survived row 14. So here's our horns. They're all added on here, and they all are open on the bottom so that we can come back and stuff them. All right, onward to round 15. Round 15, we're going to turn, and we're not going to chain here so that this decrease remains the most dramatic thing here. We don't want a sharp corner that would be caused by a chain. We just want to kind of float on by, if you will. So we're not going to chain, and we're going to decrease the first stitch with a traditional decrease since we're working flat. Then 6 SC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you'll see we are back to our little horns. So on the other side of the horn, we're going to only work on the horn. We're not going to go through both layers because we don't want to pinch this closed. If we were to work through both layers, it would pinch it closed, and our goal is to leave this open. right? So in order to do that, we need to work on only the horn coming back the other way. So we're going to work only on the horn. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So one of the things you have to do here is make sure you are skipping the same number of stitches on the work that you're not touching. So you're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the next SC goes here. All right, because you don't want to make this crooked or mess up your stitch count by having the wrong number of stitches here that you have here. So on the medium horn, we're going to work 6 SCs, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and we're going to ignore my knot, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and our next stitch goes here on the eyelid. All right, so you see how our horns are nice and open here? Pretty cool, right? All right, so next medium horn is 6 stitches again. So we work on just the horn. I'm going to work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put our next stitch right there. All right. Onward to the large horn. This one is 8 SE. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, and then we're going to count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and our SC goes right there in between. Last one is 10 SCs on the extra large hook or horn only. I'll do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And just to be sure I got it right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we have 1 stitch left on the very end, which is exactly what we had on the last round. We're done there. Awesome! Okay, check it out, guys. You have attached your horns. How much fun is this? So, look how cool these are. So you can open them up and stuff them because they are open on the back. See how groovy that is? Eee! How fun. All right, we're gonna do just one more even row across to kind of close things up, give us a nice edge to sew along. So I'm going to back up a hair so that I can chain and then turn because I'm weird. All right, chain, turn, and 46 SC across, which will take us to the last 2 stitches, and then we're going to put a decrease there. So let's go 1, 2, 3. Wow, after those difficult rounds and all those bobbles, a round worked even is, or a row worked even is really nice. Sorry I keep saying round. I'm an me person. My brain works in rounds. And our decrease. Alrighty. So we're going to leave a very, very, I cannot exaggerate this enough, very long tail. Because this tail is what's going to sew our whole eyeball to our pillow front. Alright, so really long sewing tail. This is important. It will make your life easier. So before we start the lower eyelid, we need to make sure we are going to put it in the right place when we attach it to the eyelid. So I grabbed my brand new stitch markers. Are these the cutest little like octopus stitch markers in the world? These are from Twice Sheared Sheep. Oh my god, I'm totally in love. There's a link in the description. You gotta check these out. So cute. Anyway, they have these great big lobster hooks on them so I can't snag things and so I can get it through my stitches really easy. So we're gonna go to where our attachment ended on the left side of the eyeball. It says with eyeball facing up, so that's this way. On the left side here, and we're going to count down 12 stitches down this side from our attachment here. Now, you got to look kind of close. If you can tell, this stitch has been worked into. It's easier to see on the back. See? So, we do not count the stitch that has been worked into. We can start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we're going to place a marker in that exact stitch, in stitch 12. Okay, then we're going to go over to the right side, and we're going to count down 15 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Here's our 15th stitch. And we're going to place our marker in that 15th stitch. Alright, so these two incredibly adorable markers are going to tell us where we are supposed to attach the bottom eyelid. Okay, just like our upper eyelid, we're going to start with a folded over section of HDC rounds. So, or rows, gosh darn it, sorry, rows. So I've chained 50, and I'm going to HDC in the third chain from the hook, and then HDC all the way across, turn, and do it again. So we're going to make 4 rows this time of just HDCs, and make sure that you are counting your stitches at the end of your row, so you have 48 HDCs to work into when we get to row 5. I'm going to have you go ahead and do all your HDCs, and I'll meet you back here at row 5. Alright, we finished our HDC strip for our bottom eyelid. Just like the top eyelid, we are going to do the exact same thing to make it have that rounded edge and be nice and thick for us. You'll notice that this is 4 rows instead of 5, so this will be a slightly narrower strip. But just like on the upper eyelid, we're going to work this together. We folded it so the chain is on the back, the starting chain is on the back, and chained 1, and we're going to insert our hook in the first stitch, and then insert our hook into the back of that first chain, and pull through and finish our SC. Alright, so again, in through the stitch, and through the next chain, and SC. And we're going to do that all the way down, just like we did on the upper eyelid, so that we have a folded over piece for our bottom eyelid that matches the top one.
So this is where my microphone went out on my computer, so the rest of this video will be voiceover. I apologize. We are getting ready to start row 6 of our lower eyelid, and it starts with a chain 1 and then 3 SCs. 1, 2, 3 SCs, and then we're going to work bobble stitch 3 SC 11 times. So you'll see this is going to be a bit longer of a strip, but we're going to do the same bobble stitch we did before. We're insert our hook and pull up 1, yarn over and pull through 2. We're going to do that again in the same hole, the same stitch. And now we have 3 loops on our hook. I'm going to do it again, and we have 4 loops on our hook, 5 loops, and 6 loops on our hook. Then we yarn over and pull through all 6 for our bobble stitch. So we're going to repeat that bobble stitch 3SC 11 times, and we're going to work that all the way down the end of this strip. The bobble stitches will cover this entire strip all the way to the end, with the exception of the very last stitch. So at the end, you're going to have 1 extra SC. So we'll do bobble stitch SC 11 times, and then SC again at the end. All right, and we have 1 more bobble stitch to do for this row. We're going to do our 1 last bobble stitch here. And that's 3, 4, and 5 legs on our bobble stitch. Yarn over, pull through 6. 3 SC to finish out the repeat. All right, we're done with our repeat, and then we have 1 SC on the end. And we are done with that. Before we turn, you're going to want to pop all of your bobbles to what would be the back side, the wrong side of this row. This is so they will be pointed forward or on the front side of the work after we turn. So you're going to want your bobbles on the front side after we turn to work the next round, because the next round is going to be our attachment for our eyeball. And you're going to want the bobbles up for that. So we're going to get our eyeball out here with our adorable little stitch markers on it. And I have pinned up the excess of our really long tail with a paper clip so that it's out of our way. We're going to be working between our 2 stitch markers on the eyeball, but we need to flip the whole thing upside down first so that our bottom eyelid is on top, so it's facing the right way for us to get the work done on it. So we flip over our eyelid here, and then we're going to take our eyeball that we had popped the bobbles out on, and we're going to hold it with the wrong side of the work to the right side of the eyeball. So here's the wrong side. We're going to hold it to the right side of the eyeball. So what this is going to do is show you how that folded over eyelid is going to lay on the eyeball directly opposite the upper eyelid. All right, so first we've got to establish the positioning of our eyeball here. So we need to first do 6 SC. There's 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to hold our eyelid, like we said before, wrong side to the right side of the eyelid. And we're going to be working on the stitches in between the stitch markers. We're not going to work the stitches that are marked. We're going to work all of the stitches that are in between them. There are 33 of them, and if you want to go through and count to make sure you have 33, you can do that. In fact, I highly recommend it. Make sure that you have the right amount to work on in between the 2 stitch markers. So you're going to, just like before, insert your hook into the eyelid first, right? And then into the first stitch next to the stitch marker, and then finish your SC. I took a moment and took our stitch markers off because since this is laying flat on the table, it makes a lot of noise. So I went ahead and took them off so they're not clunking around. But so we're going to keep going here on our attachment. So inserting our hook through the eyelid side first, then through the next stitch on the eyeball, and SC those 2 pieces together. And we're going to keep going right on down the line like this. You are working in a bobble stitch row, or the top of a bobble stitch row, so keep in mind that you're going to have to make sure those bobbles are out of your way and you are only grabbing the top stitch on the bobble stitches. I know that this makes it a little bit harder, but the lower eyelid needed to be thinner, and so we needed to have fewer rows between the bobble stitch rows in order to make it look like a lower eyelid and not just an upside down upper eyelid. All right, almost done with the attachment stitches. Let's put one more, and we are at 33 stitches that have attached our lower eyelid to our eyeball. How cool is that? It's like nice and archy, and it actually looks like an eye now. This is so great. So we have a few more stitches to do on the lower eyelid by itself to get back to the end here. We need to do 9 SC on the eyelid only. So let's do those real quick. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to finish off our row. Yay, our attachment's done. So nice to have the attachments done. So look at that. It looks like an eye now. How great is that? All right, so we're going to flip this back over so we can keep working on our lower eyelid. And we need to put our hook back in here and turn our work. So we're going to turn and chain 1, or chain 1 and turn. And row 8 is another bobble stitch row. So it starts with an SC, and then we do a bobble stitch, 3 SC 6 times. So we're going to have 7 bobble stitches total, but the repeat is bobble stitch 3 SC 6 times. So here is our first bobble stitch, and then SC 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to do that 5 more times. So let's make some more bobble stitches. Are you tired of them yet? This is the last bobble stitch row. After this row, you will be completely done with bobble stitches. But I hope you've enjoyed them, and I hope you love the texture they add to this project. All right, that's 6 bobble stitches. Now here's our 3 SC to finish the repeat. And then we have one more bobble stitch that's kind of off on its own here, not included in the repeat, that makes the 7th bobble stitch of the row. This one, you know, it just didn't fit into the repeat, so it's over here all by its lonesome. So there's our last bobble stitch, and then we SC 1 and slip stitch and turn. And we are done with our last row of bobble stitches. I love the way this looks. I like that they're a little bit closer together than the upper eyelid. It adds a lot of neat texture to it. Starting out row 9, we are not going to chain. So you're going to skip the slip stitch that we previously did, and you're not going to chain. So you're kind of using the slip stitch as your turning chain. And you're going to slip stitch in that first stitch after the previous slip stitch. And I like to pull that real tight so that it's a real smooth transition between the two. Just like before, we don't want those sharp corners on it, you know, that jagged edge. So this prevents that from happening. So then we're going to 26 SC across. This is just an even 26 stitches. Back across, and remember we're working into those bobble stitch rows, so make sure you're not grabbing huge chunks of your bobbles and you're only grabbing that very top edge of the bobble stitch as you work your way back across. 24, 25, and 26. Alrighty. Oh my gosh, guys, we're on the last row of the eye. This is so exciting. So turn and chain, or chain and turn. You have one short row of single crochets left to do. This one is really just here to round off the bottom enough that you have a nice edge to sew into. So just 25 SC back the other direction, and you're going to slip stitch in that last stitch to really round off the whole project and leave it on a nice smooth line for your eyelid. All right, 23, 24, 25, and a slip stitch is the last stitch in your whole eye. Yippee! You did it! So we're going to flip it over and look at your eye. You did such a great job. Look what a great job we did. This was so fun. So you're going to weave in this end and this end, these two here. You're going to leave the big crazy long one that we made, and you're going to weave in this end here. And then this little end you can keep, and you can use it to tack down the eyeball sides here when we get to it. But we're going to put this on our pillow forms next, and we're going to kind of tilt it at a little angle like this so it looks like an eye. It's going to be so great. Alrighty, here we are. It's time to attach our eye to our pillow form. Isn't that exciting? I've put our eye here on the pillow at an angle. I like having it at this kind of a slight, not quite 45-degree angle, because it makes me imagine like where the nose would be, kind of like out this way. If you were to come across a dragon, you know, in your travels, this is kind of the angle it would be at as he was trying to look at you and try to figure out who you are. Some people tilt it so it's straight. That's fine. I just like mine at a bit of an angle. It fits really nicely on the pillow this way too, so keep that in mind that it is designed to fit this way. You're going to be using your really, really long tail that we made, and you're going to be starting at the end of that. So what I did was take a bunch of gold yarn that I had sitting around, and I wrapped it so you could see where you're going to be attaching. So it's going to go all the way around. It's actually going to kind of tuck under that part there and then end up back where you started. So we're going to start there, and we're kind of going to work around each of these horns, making sure that you give them each a little bit of extra space, kind of like a, you know, ridgy thing, because these are three-dimensional. They stick up and they are stuffed. So if you flip here, I added a little bit of stuffing to each one, and it doesn't take very much, just a little bit, but to give them that really good round look. I did go ahead and stuff those. And then like there's even stuffing in this little bitty guy here. I mean, it's a very small amount, but it is definitely useful. So you're going to sew around the edges of the horns using that starting yarn, or using that ending tail yarn, I guess, not really starting. And you're going to sew all the way to the end here. And then when you get to the back edge of the eye, you're going to make a really straight line where the end of the top eyelid and the end of the bottom eyelid line up. And you want them to be in a straight line together and touching. So you'll make this nice straight edge here, and you want both of the corners of the eyes to be touching when you sew them on. You need to touch right there. Then you're going to keep sewing along the outside edge of the bottom eyelid, sewing along those raw edges we've left for you, all the way back around until you get back to the rolled edges of the eyelids again. And this is going to be at that sharp angle again. So, and you'll want to sew these together. Then you're going to need to thread your yarn behind this piece that dangles off here. And I have a little trick for you. See, we have a hole in the end. If you remember, this is a big long tube. You can actually thread your sewing yarn up through the hole and come out the end here. And obviously you can't pull too tight, but you can come out the end here, and then it ends up right where you need to be to start sewing the top edge of it down. So you're going to start here at the top edge when your yarn end comes out, and then sew along that whole top edge, sort of like this, and then up the eyelid again and back to your starting point. And so that's why you needed that ridiculously long tail, was because we were making a ridiculously long attachment that goes all the way around. You're also going to remember not to attach the rolled edges at all on the top eyelid or the bottom eyelid. All those rolled edges need to not be sewn down. And the reasoning for that is just it looks more realistic that way. It will lay better on your eye if you don't force it into a position. And you'll like the way it turns out a lot better. The next step in bringing your eye to life is going to be making it 3D. And of course, to do that, we're going to add some stuffing. We're going to take our stuffing, and I like to use not a ton, but just enough to make it good and, three-dimensional. You don't want them to have bug eyes, but you still want to give it some oomph here. So you can stuff it from either side. The right side is much easier to get to. So you can stuff your stuffing in there. Your goal with stuffing the eye is to firm out or push out the eyelids so that they look right and to give that three-dimensional vibe. So don't feel like you need to make it super round like a beach ball. It doesn't need to be. Then once your stuffing is in your eyeball the way you want it, you're going to seal up either side of the eyeball here. So remember that tail that we had on this side is going to be used to close that side. And then you're going to need to cut another strand of cornmeal or the lightest color here to sew that side. And this is yet another reason why we don't tack down those eyelids, so that you can easily kind of push them out of your way like this and be able to sew your eyelid or eyeball in place and hold in all your stuffing. The last thing we need to do with our eye before we can sew our two pillows together is put our eye slit in, or pupil, or slit pupil, there's the word. And we're actually going to put this in here. We're going to kind of hold it where it needs to be. And it's going to be in relation to the eye. It's not going to be in line with it. It is instead going to be parallel to the edges of the pillow. So if you think about it, it is straight up and down, and the rest of the eye is at an angle. So that makes the eye slit straight up and down. Yeah, that's a little easier to see. And each of the ends are going to be tucked under the eyelid here. So you're gonna, there again, lift up your eyelid and tuck it in, and then use your orange tail to sew the whole thing down all the way around the edge, making sure that the ends are tucked under your eyelids. So you do not want those to show. You shouldn't be able to see the ends of your eye slit. So there he is. There's our dragon eye. He's looking so dragony. Last thing we got to do is sew our two halves of the pillow together along the edges. So let's go and get that done, and then we'll be totally done with our dragon eye pillow. We did it. I can't believe it. Yay, we did it. Alrighty, we finished our entire attachment of our eye here. They've got it all set and ready to go. All my ends are woven in, but now we have to put the other side of the pillow on. So we're going to attach the other piece to the wrong side of the pillow. So your eye is always going to be where it will be when you're finished. It's not going to be turned inside out or anything. We're just going to put it right on the outside there. And you want to make sure you're lining up the last edge, the last row of the pillow form together so that these stitches are the same. These stitches all match each other as you're trying to sew them on. And then on the other end, it will be just your starting chains on the other side. So this will make all of your textures face the same way on the front and back of the pillow. And it has the very important effect of making sure that your side pieces match up. So this is going to make it so each of your edges looks the same. See how these look identical? Your turning chains and the last SCs are all in the exact same place going down the side here. So this is, there's your turning chains, and then your ending SCs, then turning chains, then SCs. And it makes it super easy to see these when you're getting ready to attach the sides. So just to mark these for you real quick so that they're easy to see, you're going to work this first stitch in the very corner, obviously, just like you would any other corner. I would recommend 3 stitches in each corner just to keep them nice and square. And then your next one is going to be the turning chain from the previous row. So I went ahead and marked the 2 turning chains. Then the next one is going to be the end SC from the next row down. So there's our turning chains. And next we're going to mark the ends of that SC. So we're going to mark that with the most crooked pin possibly ever in the world. I don't know why I kept this. And we're going to mark that SC that's in the end. So each of your stitches is going to be this wide, and this will allow you to have 1 stitch per row all the way up the sides of your piece. So mark the next one. That's the next turning chain, and the next SC that's on the end. This is going to give you nice even stitches as you're working on either side on the what's called the long edge of the work. So that should make that much easier because you lined up your last row there and your chain edge on this side. It makes your edges match. And that's it. You will sew 3 sides and then put your pillow form in and close up the last side, and your pillow will be completely done.
You did it! You finished your dragon eye pillow! I'm so excited for you! If you had fun with this pattern, please let me know in the comments. And let me know which Hook by Kati pattern you would like to see a video tutorial of next. Don't forget to subscribe and tell all your friends where you got your pattern for your awesome new dragon eye pillow. Thanks for watching a Hook by Kati tutorial video. Please click subscribe and click that little bell so you get notifications every time I post a new video. And remember to go to hookbykati.com for more patterns, tutorials, and guides to help you improve your art.